2024, Representative Omar gave remarks at an event in Minneapolis in which she made treasonous statements. Whereas Representative Omar said she has spoken to many Somalians who asked her to intercede for the Somali government by pressuring the United States government into certain actions.
Remarks, the gentleman from South Carolina, I have very strong disagreement with a lot of the statements that Representative Omar has made. We've covered most of them. That some people did something is the one that really sticks in my craw pretty strongly. Raises a whole lot of flags for me. I think there are significant amount of justifications to raise.
CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberty.
The House floor erupted when Representative Ilhan Omar's remarks came under fire, with lawmakers accusing her of betraying her oath of office. Critics claimed her comments about Somali interests crossed a line, sparking fierce backlash. At the heart of the controversy were accusations that Omar prioritized Somalia's concerns over America's, something her opponents framed as treasonous. This set the stage for a dramatic showdown in Congress where her loyalty and record were put under the microscope. During a fiery session, South Carolina representatives voiced sharp disagreement with Omar's past remarks, particularly her infamous "some people did something" statement about 9/11. Many lawmakers argued this phrase showed a disturbing lack of respect for one of America's darkest tragedies. Critics insisted it minimized the sacrifices made by thousands of Americans, raising deep concerns about where Omar's true priorities lie. That moment continues to haunt her political career and fuel calls for accountability.
Recognition.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 2A.1 of Rule 9, I seek recognition to give notice of my intent to raise a question of the privileges of the House. The form of the resolution is as follows.
Recognized.
Censuring Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota. Whereas elected members of Congress take an oath to bear true faith and allegiance to the United States without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. Whereas Representative Ilhan Omar took an oath of allegiance to the United States upon becoming a citizen, declaring, "I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, of whom or which I have heretofore been a subject or citizen."
Things escalated further when Marjorie Taylor Greene and Chip Roy took the floor, delivering one of the most heated speeches Congress has seen in years. Their words didn't just challenge Omar's positions, they framed her as a direct threat to America's values and security. With voices raised and passion on full display, they laid out a case for censure, arguing that Omar's actions proved she was working against the very country she swore to defend. The chamber fell silent as their words echoed. Marjorie Taylor Greene's resolution was then introduced, formally censuring Omar. The resolution accused her of violating her oath, referencing her naturalization where she swore to renounce allegiance to any foreign power. Greene read passages from George Washington's farewell address to highlight the dangers of pretended patriotism and foreign influence. This historical reference added weight to the resolution, making the case that Omar's alleged behavior wasn't just a mistake, but a betrayal of America's founding principles.
Whereas on January 27, 2024, Representative Omar gave remarks at an event in Minneapolis in which she made treasonous statements. Whereas Representative Omar said she has spoken to many Somalians who asked her to intercede for the Somali government by pressuring the United States government into certain actions. Whereas Representative Omar assured the Somalians she spoke to, the U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. They will do what we want and nothing else. They must follow our orders, and that is how we will safeguard the interest of Somalia. Whereas Representative Omar continued.
The resolution cited Omar's January 2024 remarks in Minneapolis, where she allegedly reassured Somali Americans that the U.S. government would only act according to their interests. Greene argued this statement proved Omar was acting as a foreign agent, protecting Somalia's waters and political power from within the U.S. system. The claim shocked many onlookers, sparking heated debate about what constitutes free speech, what crosses into foreign loyalty, and whether these remarks really justified such a historic censure. As Greene spoke, Chip Roy followed with equal intensity, reminding Congress of past moments when political loyalty clashed with American duty. He referenced Senate battles over judicial nominees and the infamous nuclear option, drawing parallels to today's climate of division. Roy framed Omar's case not just as one politician's misstep, but as part of a larger trend threatening America's constitutional order. His fiery delivery underlined the seriousness of the issue, leaving no doubt about where he stood.
For as long as I am in U.S. Congress, Somalia will never be in danger. Its waters will not be stolen by Ethiopia or others. Sleep in comfort knowing I am here to protect the interest of Somalia from inside the U.S. system. Whereas George Washington warned in his farewell address of 1796 to guard against the impostures of pretended patriotism, and further declared citizens by birth or choice of a common country, that country has a right to concentrate your affections. The name of American, which
critics of Omar painted her as someone who consistently undermines American values while uplifting radical ideologies. They pointed to her voting record, claiming she often opposed border security, supported soft on-crime policies, and aligned herself with globalist agendas that weaken U.S. sovereignty. Greene drove this point home with force, saying Omar's priorities were out of touch with everyday Americans. Her words struck a chord with conservatives who have long viewed Omar as one of the most divisive figures in Washington. The speeches went beyond politics, they became a rallying cry for America First conservatives. Greene and Roy framed the debate as a choice between patriotism and betrayal, between defending America's Constitution or siding with foreign interests. Their stand energized Republicans, independents, and even some Democrats who are growing frustrated with Omar's controversies. For many, this moment symbolized a turning point where politicians could no longer hide behind political correctness but had to confront where their loyalty truly lies.
Belongs to you in your national capacity must always exalt the just pride of patriotism more than any appellation derived from local discriminations. Whereas these statements by Representative Omar clearly violate the oath she took as an elected member of Congress to defend and protect the United States Constitution. Whereas Representative Omar has exhibited the treasonous tendencies George Washington warned about, and her actions must be condemned by all members of Congress who adhere to the oath they took upon assuming office.
Outside Washington, Omar's political future now looks more fragile than ever. Reports suggest her own district has begun shifting against her, with voters questioning whether she still represents their values. The backlash has grown so strong that commentators are calling this the potential end of her career in Congress. Greene and Roy's fiery confrontation may have been the final straw, pushing undecided voters to reconsider their support. The pressure is mounting, and Omar faces one of her toughest political battles yet. In the end, this clash wasn't just about Ilhan Omar, it was about America's future. Greene and Roy framed their speeches as a call to action for patriots across the country, declaring that leaders who reject American values will be exposed and removed. Whether Omar survives politically or not, the message is clear: Congress will no longer tolerate divided loyalty. For conservatives, this was more than a censure, it was a declaration of strength, marking the beginning of a new political era in Washington.
And whereas by openly admitting her efforts to advance Somalia's interest, using her position as a United States representative, Representative Omar has revealed herself to be a foreign agent acting on behalf of a foreign government. Now, therefore be it resolved that Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota be censured. Representative Ilhan Omar forthwith present herself in the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of censure. Representative Ilhan Omar be censured with the public reading of this resolution by the Speaker, and Representative Ilhan Omar be and is hereby removed from the Committee of the Budget and the Committee on Education and the Workforce.
As the floor debate raged on, supporters of the censure resolution argued that this wasn't about partisanship, it was about protecting America from divided loyalty. They claimed Omar's own words confirmed she was acting in the interest of Somalia instead of America, which they framed as unacceptable for a sitting U.S. lawmaker. The chamber grew tense as Republican leaders pressed the case that the oath of office must mean something. Anything less, they said, would erode trust in Congress itself. Greene's fiery words were not just about Omar's record, but about setting a precedent for future lawmakers. She insisted that foreign allegiances cannot coexist with American leadership, stressing that every representative must put the Constitution first. By laying out a direct connection between Omar's alleged promises to Somalians and her votes in Congress, Greene pushed the narrative that national security was at risk. Her speech was designed to resonate with voters who already feel Washington has lost its way. Roy built on this momentum, reminding everyone that Congress has faced similar crossroads before.
I do associate myself with the remarks of the gentleman from Kentucky, but also the gentleman from South Carolina, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, the gentlelady, all the remarks that we've been talking about over here. And I appreciate the spirit of the remarks from the gentleman from Colorado. Would note that we're here for a very obvious reason. The door was opened, and now we're dealing with that. And the door shouldn't have been opened. I'm reminded when I was in the Senate Judiciary Committee in 2005, and Miguel Estrada was being filibustered by the Democrat majority at the time. And we know why. We know this because a memo that said very specifically that he was being filibustered because he was an Hispanic conservative was found, but then shoved aside. We couldn't talk about it because it was found on a server, and they said, we shouldn't get it. There's a whole lot of backstory on that. But there was a lot of drama around that. There were 7 judges being held up: Priscilla Owen, Janice Rogers Brown, because she's black. That was all happening. We just sweep that aside. And you fast forward, and Bill Frist was being pressured to deploy the nuclear option.
He described how past decisions, like the use of the nuclear option in the Senate, reshaped American politics. In his view, Omar's case represented another critical turning point, one that would test whether lawmakers had the courage to enforce accountability. His appeal was framed as bipartisan, urging both sides of the aisle to recognize the seriousness of the issue rather than dismiss it as political theater. Throughout the speeches, Omar's most controversial statements were revisited. Critics highlighted her claim that the U.S. would only act as Somali Americans wished, calling it proof of foreign influence. They repeated her vow to protect Somalia's waters and interests, arguing this crossed far beyond free expression.
I remember being part of all those conversations, the Senate lawyer in the Judiciary Committee. Bill Frist decided not to deploy the nuclear option. In 2013, Harry Reid did deploy the nuclear option. 2017, then certain things changed at the United States Supreme Court. So now we live in that world. It is what it is. Now here we sit. The door was opened. I just went back and reread my speech on the floor because the gentleman, I hadn't done that yet. I went back and reread my speech on the floor. Not stand by every word of that speech. And in it, I referenced the fact that I just a few months prior had been in agreement with some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle with respect to January 6th, which there's disagreements on our side of the aisle on some of that with respect to the votes at the time. And that I'd taken very strong disagreement and sought apology from our colleague on our side of the aisle about some of the remarks that were said, but felt that this was not the right path to go down. I stand by that. So here we sit. I could associate myself and do with all the remarks the gentleman from South Carolina. I have very strong disagreement with a lot of the statements that Representative Omar has made. We've covered most of them. That some people did something is the one that really sticks in my craw pretty strongly. Raises a whole lot of flags for me. I think there are significant amount of justification.
Greene and Roy insisted these remarks weren't slips of the tongue, they revealed her true agenda. Their repetition of these quotes hammered home the idea that Omar could no longer be trusted with public office. The debate struck at the heart of American identity. Greene argued that citizens, by birth or choice, owe loyalty to one country alone. She invoked George Washington's farewell address to underscore the dangers of divided patriotism. This historical reference gave her speech added moral weight, tying Omar's controversy to the very foundation of America's values. By painting Omar's record as a betrayal of Washington's warnings, Greene framed the censure not as politics, but as an act of national defense. Meanwhile, Omar's defenders tried to argue that her statements were being taken out of context and that political speech should not be punished with censure. But Greene and Roy dismissed this defense outright, claiming the record spoke for itself. To them, this was not a free speech issue. It was a question of divided loyalty and misuse of power. The clash revealed the deep ideological divide in Congress, where every word from Omar was dissected and weighed against her oath of office. Greene's resolution also demanded Omar be removed from key committees, including the Budget and Education and Workforce panels. Supporters argued that allowing her to sit on these influential committees while allegedly prioritizing Somalia's interests posed a direct risk to national policy. The move was framed not just as punishment, but as protection, ensuring that no lawmaker could use committee power to advance foreign agendas. This proposal heightened the stakes, turning the debate into a fight over the integrity of Congress itself. Outside the chamber, the reaction was explosive. Conservative media outlets hailed Greene and Roy's speeches as historic, calling them a wake-up call for America. Commentators argued that Omar's censure was long overdue and framed it as a victory for patriots who want their leaders to prioritize national interests. Across social media, the speeches went viral, with clips being shared widely as proof that conservatives were taking a stand. The momentum extended beyond Congress, fueling grassroots energy nationwide. On the other hand, progressive voices accused Greene and Roy of using Omar as a political target to energize their base. They argued that censure was being weaponized as a partisan tool, warning it could set a dangerous precedent. But even among some Democrats, quiet unease surfaced. The bluntness of Omar's remarks left room for doubt, making it difficult for her defenders to mount a full-throated counterargument. The divide highlighted just how polarizing Omar's presence in Congress has become. As the dust settled, one thing was clear: this was a turning point for Congress. Greene and Roy's fiery speeches will be remembered as the moment they publicly declared that America would no longer tolerate divided loyalty among its lawmakers. Whether Omar survives politically or not, the standard has been set. For conservatives, it was a defining victory. For Omar, it marked the toughest battle of her career. And for America, it signaled that the fight over loyalty and patriotism is far from over.